discussion today for consideration at next Tuesday's meeting.
Okay.
And then one issue for discussion, and actually, I will look forward to some kind of decision also to provide the PUC on that issue at next week's meeting. So, if I may, I'd like to just go to the three other resolutions first before I get to resolution 20-01 on net metering and batteries.
Okay, so
And the first one is the 2020-02, and this is to request your authorization to petition the PUC for the procurement of a contract for supply of diesel for the Tenjo power plant. This contract will be over 1.5 million, and again, this contract is expiring. Let me see what
May 31st, 2023?
Yeah, May 31st, 2020.
2020,
Yeah, so we would like to go through that process. So that's the first resolution, Mr. Chair. Again, it's just to get diesel for Tenjo. We do have other contracts for the other parts, for the other areas. But this one is expiring on 20.
Just $1.5 million, right?
It's over $1.5 million.
But that's all it is. We're asking
Yeah.
we're approving at 1.5
Yeah.
for the annual fuel for Tenjo.
Yeah. This is just to go out on bid.
Oh, to go on a bid.
Yeah.
Oh,
We don't
okay.
have any.
This is an estimated cost.
Yeah. We know it's going to be over $1.5 million, so we have to get permission first.
Get it right
Yeah.
away.
So that's the first item.
Okay. Anybody have any questions really on this one? No, I was just thinking, John, when we go out for fuel contracts, can't we just have one fuel contract for all the different plants? Why
It's
do you
very,
separate?
very
Or just
difficult
asking.
because it includes delivery,
Okay,
and that's why delivery in different areas will cost different.
okay,
And then when we do get the bulk fuel oil, then it's really going to eliminate them having to supply the fuel and the delivery. We may just go on delivery then. But that would, in fact, there was an expression to try and consolidate it in this one, and I said, no, it's too early yet. We'll wait another year before we go out for the bulk annual, because we're going to eliminate RFO and go to diesel. So there should be some economies of scale.
and, okay, because, that way we can, okay, you've answered my question, thank you. Are there any other questions? No? Okay, next, John.
The next item, Mr. Chair, is to petition the PUC to implement the option for the second and third year of the management of the operation and maintenance of the bulk fuel oil storage tank. This team did come in the lowest bidder in the last bid, and they did lay out the first. This was a 2-year base and then a 3-year, 1-year options. We did implement the first year extension, which is what it is now, and it ends in September 2020. So we have 2 more years to go, and the escalator here is 3% of the O&M, as shown in the. It is shown in the right behind the resolution, the breakdown of the cost. So again, I just don't see any major advantages to go on and rebid at this point, especially when we're transitioning with all the different projects now towards ultra-low sulfur diesel. So this will bring us right to about the time when we can bid out for the new fuel. We bid out again for a new contract for 3 years and plus.
Okay.
So again, it's just
So this carries
a lot of work over the next 2 years, and I don't see much to gain by having to bid this out again at this point. So I'm asking not just for the 1 year, but go ahead for the 2-year
You
extension.
want to exercise both the second and third.
And again, that requires a PUC approval, of course, after you approve. No?
Yes.
No,
Just
Go
one,
ahead, go
just one quick question, John,
Sure.
though. How is item 6 tied to a variance, like an inflationary factor, if it's a reimbursable cost?
Item 6.
Yeah, on page
Operation and
83.
maintenance budget reimbursable cost. And again,
Is that an estimate?
mm,
How do you, how would you know, if it's reimbursable and they don't spend it, how is that number factored? Is it just a, is it
so
just
I would assume that this is the budget then for that
budgeted
year.
costs?
For that year. I have to come back to you by Tuesday to
Is the whole
confirm
num
that.
budget on the bottom?
But I would think that,
It's
that,
reimbursable.
that, so that, in other words, if we don't spend it, it seems to me that if we don't spend, or they don't spend that budget, then
How would you?
we only pay them so much, no? But I'll come back to you on Tuesday on that one. Yeah. But I think that was probably the case because this just means the budget has been increased, but if they don't spend it for various reasons, then it doesn't get a
But it's
cost.
like, that's gonna.
That's what I'm asking, is it
Some inflation.
Okay.
Then we can check that out.
Yeah.
That's what.
Tuesday, okay. John, next one?
Uh,
Any
The
questions?
next item, Mr. Chair, is 2020-04, and this is just to ask yourselves for, we support the resolution recognizing and congratulating GPA's recent professional engineers. And when I say recent, I really am thinking of the last 3 to 5 years, because in the last 3 to 5 years, there's been really 3 engineers that have passed the exams and are professional engineers designated. One of which actually I think was designated last night, sworn in last night. Yeah.
Nice, nice.
And so, and again, also to recognize the team that are mentors, no? Because they're always encouraging our new engineers
The manampo?
the manampo, isn't it? So really, when you summarize it all, the 3 additional plus the 11 existing, there's 14 professional engineers in Guam Power Authority.
In GPA.
In GPA. There's also 6 in GWA.
I think there's 8,
6 or 8.
including the general manager.
Yeah. So we're talking about just within this
2 agencies.
2 agencies, there's about 20. Now, part of, I mean, try and find that anywhere else is not an easy scenario, no? But so my emphasis there is really first to congratulate and thank them for, and then secondly also to highlight that there is a lot of professional there is not only this, but there are other accredited parts of the organization that are, recognized as professionals in their field.
John, one question.
Sure.
GPA and I hope GWA, we're working closely with the new School of Engineering at UOG to partner with them and to get interns and things, right?
Yes, every summer we picked up every engineer, every candidate, engineering student that applies.
Okay.
And that's been very successful actually in bringing back, so not only here but from the States, both GPA and GWA hire interns during the summer so that they can get a first-hand knowledge and work with their, potential peers in the future and all of that. So that's the second resolution, Mr. Chair.
I just have a question.
Sure.
When you get a PE designation, do you get a bump in pay?
That's the next thing I'm gonna think about it.
Think about it.
No, not right now. I think what I like to do with that is really have have a designation of that professional engineer and recognizing that. I've asked for some work to be done on that, and
Well, there's already a model, right? The teachers do it. You get a master's degree, you get a bump in pay. You get a certification in early education, you get, there's scales of it, so, yeah, I know they do something too in nursing.
so
Yeah.
we'll come back on that another time. I've asked them to work on that actually, so that really it's an incentive.
No,
But
do we at least help them achieve it by paying for their education? For me?
We need to give them the direction.
Yeah, we have to give them direction.
No, okay. So we have an engineer sitting in our city, and we want them to achieve to be a PE,
Because they already have their.
and they need to take this test, right?
And we've already
Do we
passed
pay for the test?
I agree to
additional, there's no credit if you, I mean, those of us that come from the private side, you pass it, we reimburse you. I mean, that's,
Oftentimes.
yeah, because we encourage you to go get a degree. So, so the incentive is enroll in the program, assist you, and then you pass it, you get credit back for, yeah.
Like the GM had mentioned, we're looking at a prior program we put in place for kids that did not necessarily match. It was the issues of how to manage that program, what certifications are required versus what aren't. So, so there are some nuts and bolts that go into that. However, currently, we have, all employees are CTE employees. So within our performance evaluation forms, if you achieve, there is a portion there for personal achievements, and we can quantify that in the current performance evaluation to suggest that that employee also get a salary adjustment for that. So that's how we quantify it. That is compared to the job factors of that employee's position. So if I'm the AGMA and I get my professional, I get my PE licensing, do I need that in order, does that enhance how I do my job? So, so those issues are currently, we could look at that in the current performance evaluation form and process now. But we're looking to implement something specifically for certification process.
Okay.
That's coming, we're gonna,
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
and okay, Mr., if no other questions on those, I will proceed with resolution 28-01. It's only maybe 15, 20 pages long, but if you bear with me, I'll try to move as fast as I can.
This is the YouTube you tried to watch, yeah.
I liked it though. I was packing my clothes, watching it. It's actually quite good. Beautiful
I will
number.
move through it, so move entirely, but again, there were two changes in the current hearing that we were looking at. One was to require frequency control where historic system batteries to be tied in, 4 new solar PVs or wind turbines to be tied into the system because of the PVPC issue. Second one was to remove the annual cash statement and credit rollover options. So the commission asked us to have an outreach to get comments and information, and of course we've done that. The first one again, I'll go through it for the solar PV. This is the resolution that we did before you Tuesday. Second one on the credit has already been approved and actually we filed with the PUC, but I think you will wait for that one. Okay, next. Again, what's been happening since 2015, here we've been tracking the number, the total megawatts of net metering over here on the left side versus the number of, I'm sorry, this is the customer count and the number of megawatts for net metering since 2015. As you can see now, as of December, we have about 2,068 customers with 23.7 megawatts of capacity. Okay. But one thing I do want you to notice is look here, versus March of 2018, you can see the gap that's been increasing. What does that gap mean? That means that the systems are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay? And so that is one of the concerns is that it appears to, that they're putting in, systems are being put in excess of what they need, and therefore that's sold back to the utility at a certain price, which is also a concern that I have.
But John, there is a limit, right? There is a legal limit on the size.
There's a limited size of 25 kilowatt
Okay.
for residential, which is, I don't think anyone on the island has a house that will require
Other than Tiaco's
that
are
can
big houses.
put 25.
Ours is 10.
And then there's also 100 kilowatts for commercial. So that's the limit for
And so
houses.
what's the average residential size?
average here of about residential is about 7.9, and in a previous analysis, the average per customer year is about 10, 11. But of course, there's the commercial, no? But on residential size, it's about 8. Net metering role, maybe I'd like to note this because there's a, there's be some discussion, some thoughts or some comments that we're killing net metering, no? We're trying to kill them. We haven't done anything, but look at the level of net metering coming on every month. It's less than 20 now. So it's really just taking, it's moving along, not like in the early days when you could get as much as 40, 60 installations a month. No?
But I recall, John, that during that period, that's when we had really high VX.
Yeah.
The 16.
This is the period that in
2016, right?
yeah, 2016, that there were, 2016, actually it started
Going down.
my period was 2013, 14, 15.
And then it was sort of going
flat
down.
revealed, right? And then come.
But
But
there,
again, this is the normal greatest stuff.
Story started.
I was gonna say that, it's interesting,
Yeah.
people have approached me recently,
Higher VX. So when the VX started going down.
people have approached me recently asking if there's some way that we can help them because they said they wanna get out of their solar contracts. These are people that don't pay anything down deal.
Money down.
And I said, no, we're not, we can't be involved in that. Since, when they tried to, they talked to a lawyer, they said it's ironclad, and their rates are going up now every month. And I said, well, there's an escalation clause, that allows them to increase their rates every year. And, so there's some remorse and some.
Buyer beware.
Yeah, that's what it is.
What you sign.
And they said, well, isn't there any consumer place? I said, I don't know, go talk to the consumer counsel at the AG's office. That's the only thing I could think of, but GPA can't get involved, that's a private activity, you know, and,
But I think that also explains some of the slowdown. I mean, some of it I think is the LEAC, drove some early.
the word's getting
But
out.
I think there's also some people getting concerned.
Yeah.
And I think also,
The word is spreading.
and they're also hearing, we're putting in renewables.
Yeah,
We're
that's
gonna
right.
be at this much
Solar
renewables.
farms
So
and stuff, yeah.
that maybe, they're gonna kinda hang in there. But I think your counsel to them is exactly right. It's just unfortunate that some pulled the trigger
Yeah.
and,
And usually they're the people that can least afford to do that, to be honest with you. They think they're getting a good deal. Okay,
Intermittency, you see this many times, and every day is a different picture, but again, you just get the same picture.
wow.
What is the solution for this? No, the solution for this is that we are installing the 16 megawatt battery in Talapoco. Next. Here is for the net metering customers. No one can tell me that it's not intermittent. No, these are from the smart grid system. So therefore, as you can see, this is what's going into the system. No,
is that cumulative intermittency from all NEM customers?
no, this is a particular net customer.
It's what? It's a particular, it's just a single
Yeah,
customer.
I did several
Different locations?
presentation that showed different locations, and they're all doing the same.
Because that was one of their comments in the hearing, hey, you're grouping us all into one, it's your grid that's a problem.
I'll show you
We can't be
something.
causing that much
Yeah, they kept
intermittency, and yet this is a single customer,
Yeah.
NEM customer, that's their intermittency, and you're saying that this is consistent, if you were to graph all 2,600, you would see a similar impact on the system in terms of
Yeah, I
intermittency.
did, I think I had like 8 or 10 in the previous presentation. But, okay, next. The other thing that we talked about, no, and again, this is also, maybe if you hear it enough times, there's an understanding by the public and everyone that there's also inconsistency, no? When it rains, and it rains for 11 days in a row, who provides the power, no?
GPA.
The system. The question becomes, okay, we can have batteries, right? But for every 1 day to supply here, I estimate it's about 7.5 cents a kilowatt. So if they want to have 5 days of reserve, that's 38 cents plus what they are paying for that contract. See, really, it's not, you know, it has to be recognized that the system with its conventional unit, the new power plant is only gonna be 5 cents a kilowatt hour whether you use it or not. And that's your reserve, see? So that's why that is still the cheapest alternative. Next. Okay, here's demographics, all those dots that you see. And I'm sorry, maybe you see it better than you put this. Those are all the net metering customers on the island.
The purple dots?
All the dots.
All the dots.
This is, you see this is gray, we call it any dot. This is the mountain.
Mm.
Here, all the dots that you see here, green, purple, this is different locations.
Okay.
That's net metering. Now, if you do what I do, I go to the channel 2 and I watch the clouds or whether it's gonna be cloudy day or not, right? I hardly ever see any clouds that go over Deridu or the south. It's always, you always ever see it's from the northwest, and I'll show you again, because we like to say distributive, right? Well, there's a difference in a 200 square mile island versus a 500 square mile versus a 4,000 versus the nation, no? So we have to really think about how, when we say distributed, there is distributed. But right here, this cluster right here is about 14 megawatts of power being generated. So when the clouds come over the little Chico, there's your 14 megawatts.
So half the NEM load is up there, the supply is up there, basically, half of the 22, more than half.
Most of it is out here, see, here's Manila, Tuning, Arvada, Derido. So again, when the clouds come from the northeast, which is our freight winds, right?
Yep.
Where they come, right across the island. So again, you know, I'm not trying to say, I'm just saying, okay, they say this, I'm trying to say, is it true or not? So again, this is the next. So again, what has been happening? In 2015, we only had 25 megawatt, and the energy now right back on the line. And at that time, they had about 7 megawatts of net metering customers. So 25 plus 7, about 32 megawatts in the system. We didn't have any outage as a result of losing the NRG. You know, we're trying from the experience, right? In 2016, the net went from 7 to about 13. So now you increase from 25 to 38.
Almost double.
We had about a couple of outages. But then just look as the trend began to go up, all the way up to now 22, this was also October, 22 megawatts. Look at the number of outages going up. So in October, for the first 9 months of, 10 months of 2019, we had 27 outages with the NRG trip. And why? The generators can only support so much. So when you get to a point where it's not going to catch that growth, then something has to fold. And so therefore, this is where
Just NRG, John, or, like you said, if a cloud cover goes over Derido, there's 14 megs could drop to 5 like that.
anywhere in
Does
the
that,
end,
doesn't that also cause a trip?
anywhere in the end.
Right,
So
so
what I'm saying-
it's not just our solar, it's the community solar, of which we have on about half, but the other
What I'm
half.
saying is that when we have 30 megawatts, 32 megawatts in the system of solar PV total,
Not so bad,
we hardly had any outages at all. Now that we have
50-ish.
total of 25 plus 20 to 47, 48 megawatts, we have 27 outages.
More trips.
Yeah. And every time there's
And
an
our capacity
outage.
didn't change.
Yep,
All they added was NEM.
Every time there's an outage, it impacts about 4,000 customers. No?
John, how many new solar power homes with batteries is it gonna take to balance? Is there, do we need the same number?
Well, what we're getting with this whole thing now is really saying, we're putting the 20, the screw here, the screw
No,
here.
don't count ours. Ours is a given, right? It's gonna happen. It wasn't meant to kind of fix the whole problem. So how many homes is it gonna take? Because that's really
To
where,
do-
well, no, to do this balance that we're trying to achieve, right? Because we're still in a gap. So if it's not all gonna be huge solar projects, because there's not that many coming up.
But there could be.
Well, again,
DOE, right?
well,
Or is
yeah, go ahead, do that deal. That's a champion for
Or
Guam.
just a
They do
company
that.
that says,
Our
wants to do the
solution
100
is that
kW max.
Right now, we're saying the 16 we have, and we broke it down, 16 and 24 again, yeah?
Mhm.
That will help the whole system, you know, with the existing NEM, the 2,000 that
Okay.
we have in there. But what I'm saying is that any more, once the thing's gone on, will start to degrade again. So we are gonna have to.
That's why he wants to report
batteries.
back.
But what I'm saying is, we continue to move forward, it's gonna start to degrade again the reliability of the system.
Okay, so if we didn't have our batteries and we wanted to achieve and fill the gap, and we can only do it through homes, because that's what's really causing, how many homes do we need to have batteries?
Well, it's the other way, you need a battery for, as you add
No,
more,
I-
you need more battery.
There,
And
so,
who's gonna provide it and pay for it?
One-
That's where we're at.
One estimate of that, Francis, is here we were at 7,000, 7 megawatts, no?
yeah,
So 7 megawatts divided by 10, that's probably 700 homes. Here we are now at 2,000. So therefore,
That's a lot of
1,300 homes
Sooner
will
or
bring
later,
us
it starts
back
to make
to,
a move.
with batteries will bring us back to there.
That's why he wants
So that's all we're saying. We're gonna fix this as best we can. It's not where we want it to be, but it's still be, very acceptable. But we cannot continue to degrade beyond that. And so therefore, we must find a way, and then there's not one solution, there's some solution as it came out from the hearing, no?
do we as the power authority help the consumer determine that battery need? Or is that the job of the solar provider?
Right now, we are the battery for those NEMs.
No, I'm talking about, if
When
this,
the homeowner
say
decides.
we pass this
Yeah,
today,
Typically this.
and you sit down and say, you know what, I wanna do solar in my house. And now I'm required to do battery. You know, because they told us that, hey, you know what, we don't overbill.
Then your vendor will size your array and
Right.
your battery.
Okay, so it's their responsibility.
we
It's
just-
unlike,
Under this policy.
We review it, and then we, you know.
But how do you enforce it?
We review it.
We
No,
require,
sir.
you
Yeah.
can't hook up to our
Get it.
system without your battery.
Right.
Can't
Now
get
you
the
gotta
permit.
buy a solar array
And
and
a
a battery. Because as John's saying, we just let it go where no one's putting in a battery, but we're adding another 20 megawatts of NEM, another 2,600 homes. Who's gonna pay for the cure for the intermittency? We need another battery. Well, right now, the current ratepayers are paying
For the battery.
all the battery. That's even helping the 2,600 NEM, which is why John is proposing some solutions, and then there's some ideas floating around that, we can all think about.
so as the authority, we're not gonna be participating in any way to provide some kind of, I know when we went to SEPA, the utilities that were out there actually sat down and helped you go through that. As part of their, just their customer reach out was, yeah.
We'll work with them, and usually it'll be the vendor, no? Because then we could recommend something, and if it doesn't particularly work with the equipment, maybe.
Okay, got
But
it.
by having them review it and say, so we can confirm by looking at it, that it will.
Got it.
And you might say, I want enough solar for all my power. Oh, I only want it for half my power.
Yeah.
That vendor and you will sit down and say, okay, if you want all your power, here's the size of your solar, and here's the battery you would need to support that, or any variation thereof. And as John's pointing out, the other concern is, hey, I want enough solar, not just for my house, I wanna oversize it, because GPA is paying me for all the energy. That's why we've adopted the proposal to cap it, right? And you can't carry it forward.
This is
Can't
my
overbuild it.
recommendation, and is to, again, to
Like
move forward.
insurance,
I had January 1st, I moved it to March 1st,
Now
now
it's
I'm
May.
looking to May 1st, and certainly I'm staying away from April 1st.
Thank you, John.
So May 1st is okay.
The next target.
The next target, and again, it's really a commission decision, no? Next. Again, okay, so that's that part, and I have some more information here, but as far as the, net metering rider, again, that was what was there. And what we're saying in that is that, the grid is being used is for all of these reasons, and then the $15 is not recovering that charge. And we have already petitioned the PUC for an avoided cost structure, and that's still in the process, no? Next. Again, here's our cost, historical. One thing I want to know here is that our price has cost therefore, the expectation is that we're gonna be up in $50, $60 kilowatt hour is not gonna
That's
happen.
fake news.
And in fact, with all the things we're doing, we're gonna be dropping closer to 20 cents a kilowatt hour. And by the way.
With the new gen, right, with the new gen.
The LEAC
And the solar.
LEAC is gonna go
Solar system.
down, the PUC will be acting on it next Thursday. And we're looking at all the numbers, it's still holding on as to what we have recommended. So we've given you all the information, and so I think it may have gone down a little bit more, but it's been holding on despite the large.
But it looks like the decrease is gonna be,
It's a decreasing year, so therefore this is gonna drop down now from the 15.4 to about 13.8, no?
Good.
So again, this is where we are. But again, here, the base rate has not increased, it's most just only next. Again, here's a breakdown, and I wanted everyone to know that, you know, by other people generating their own, they don't avoid the debt. They don't avoid the debt that we have to pay, which is about, 1.9 cents a kilowatt hour. Capital improvement, D&D grid. So many of these costs are not avoidable because someone generates power. But the burden now shift to those that are non-solar, because now there's less people to pay the $160 million of total service required to run the system, no?
John, is that $123 subsidy coming from the non-solar customer? Is that an annual subsidy?
Yeah, this is not.
So our 50,000 ratepayer, I'm sorry, our 50,000 ratepayers that don't have solar,
But for 2,000 is, then it's 2,000, and there's the price. Taking this 160 million, just on the general average. Yeah. So again, but also what happened in December 2015, before that NEM programs, really at the end of the 12-month period, is zeroed out. So if you have more excess energy, that really just goes into the system. You don't get paid for it, you don't get carried over to the following year. You carry it from month to month until the end of the year. In December, they allow for the credit to be carried over.
2015.
2015.
Okay.
And again, maybe in the beginning it's not so much, right? But now it's really starting to become an issue. 86,000 is what we paid out in 2018, and we carried over 241,000. So now I have to make sure I have budget 241 because in case somebody wants to get paid, no? And again, so this is 2018 numbers, and this is 2019. So in addition to that, the one that you can get paid is a natural presumption that, perhaps I can build more of my house if
oversize
there's
it.
an opportunity.
Oversize it.
But again, for every dollar, every kilowatt hours that we buy beyond what they use, we're buying it at 25 cents, but it only costs us 15 cents just the fuel. So now we're pulling $10 from the base rate, further decreasing that. Again, it's really trying to understand all the numbers. That's why I keep repeating some of these things.
John, the other thing though is, not only that, but when you do the carryover, that $241,000, yeah, that you have in excess credits. To some of these people, if they don't really need money, they just said, that's my savings account. So I've got a little shelter there, and if I ever need money, by the way, I'm gonna come running in and I want my $1,000.
Yeah, but financially, it's a nightmare.
It's
You
a-
have to
that's it,
keep on
that's-
accruing it, and
Yeah, yeah, that's the
Just
problem.
like the 3.5 million over here, you have to, you budget and you're gonna lose this much.
But I'm just saying that's why some of the people who have that amount set aside already, they're not coming in to ask for it because they really don't need it right now, but they'll build it up, and when they do need it, then and that's not the way to run a business,
And
because
we have no control over
we have no control over that.
And we shouldn't be carrying that on our books.
but it's a liability.
It's kind of like pay you as you go, otherwise,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yes, so that
Take it or leave it.
that original language, John, in the black, on the slide before, I like, that it should revert back to that.
We did file a petition, right, Grant?
Yeah.
To revert back
To that
To the original
to the
one,
old.
Yeah, the one in black up there.
where they couldn't
Lower
carry
than
forward.
shall be
Again,
accessed.
that will allow them, as we can see now, as it's progressing further, no?
Okay.
Again, summary resolution was passed by the CCU, and we have filed that. On just asking for a battery. If there's an inverter or some technology that comes together that
That
will help
minimizes.
then by all means, we're open to that, no?
Yeah.
And, then there's also, again, technical aspects, assisting them. Of course, we will assist in evaluation. There was another one, of course, the climate change, and, it's the same thing that
Killing their future.
and not, and the all review. Then Mr. Simpson, since solar could be an asset for GPA, and suggests that perhaps, there are other times that will help them utilize, resources that they have to provide solar PV. And again, what I'd like to say with that is those opportunities we're looking at to come before you before June as to how else those may work. Another group, they're thinking about solar, trying to understand, we asked them to come in so we can discuss what they're trying to do with the academy. And then the biggest one is, of course, from MRE. He agrees that really they're not willing to, he says not willing to overbill, and we should look at a model in New Jersey. But, we did have the model already here. Worried that this resolution will disincentivize, worried, concerned that it will hinder solar for the schools. Concerned that, it's the 25 megawatts that's really doing the problem and not the net metering because it's distributed. As I was showing you earlier, that's not the case. And again, it wants to work together to come up with various solutions. And all that they including I was reminded that we just paid for a $1 million third party study. Remember to look at the system together with the Navy system, what is necessary to do it. We did pay them. And even this, basically, that's the one that said we need a new power plant. It will help when the new renewables come on, but more importantly, we're going to add more renewables that go beyond 25%. We can put in about 200 megawatts with the new contracts. So that's so we did have all of this. I'd like to also note that in roundtable in October, we mentioned again that the MRS is in the process of have some batteries installed or installing more. They also said that it's really the way of the future. At this point, consumption makes more sense. And also, Mr. Ansari said he thinks that with the super PV battery, you can see a 50 cents a kilowatt. So, it's not like the battery, these battery discussions has been new. So when we look back at all the record of what's there, they have been promoting batteries, so why is it that we're gonna kill it now?
How can you see so few batteries still being put on?
Yeah.
And I have some answers from that, but
We're paying for
my,
And they know they're getting it from us for free.
yeah, so let me give you some supplemental data. Some supplemental. Our engineer again, the one who did the study, take a look at. This is whenever you lose a generator, so much load, or so much, the generator from a conventional unit or solar PV that we're doing. This is the rate of degradation, and this is seconds. This is the rate of degradation, and one is here at the bottom, it shows you the huge degradation rate. Why? Our system is smaller. 2, the number of units we have on the line is less. 3, the type of units we have on the line are not the quick reacting. So that's why we're heading to a new power plant, right? And even the recovery. So that's why we have to implement under frequencies earlier to get rid of load so that we can avoid a blackout. So again, this is all part of supporting what we're trying to say. Next. Let me talk about island communities, no? So we just put this together. Guam 200 pins per mouse, Oahu 600. Maui 772, Hawaii 4,000 square miles. You know, we start to compare ourselves with the island communities, no? We can't forget the fact that we're not a big island, no? But, so here's our demand 256. Of course, we're higher than everybody though, except the big island of Oahu, even though they have a bigger population. And I'll show you why in a minute. Here's the number of NEM customers. We have 2,000. The three Hawaiian islands on the Eco, 71,000, and then Hawaii is 4,300. But that's my understanding is that it's a combination of NEM customers plus non-NEM, but they're all solar rooftops. No?
Oh, they're on their own. They're off the grid.
No, they're still in the grid, but different programs of NEM. Different types. Okay. In terms of kilowatt, we're 23. Of course, different islands, they are have more under their belt in terms of kilowatts. But again, that's because they have such a. This is one of the reasons why that's important. Look at our rates. For this period, 24.9 GPA residential. Oahu 31, 34 Maui, 37 Hawaii, and 37 Kauai. So GPA's rates is a lot cheaper. Therefore, there is less opportunities to put in. You know, the economics of solar becomes less as you get to the lower rate of the utility. When you go down here, of course, our per capita is lower. All right. The average kilowatt per customer is here, 5 GPA, and everybody else, of course, is about 2 to 4. Kilowatt per customer, again, we're higher. And this is all given to why. Our average kilowatt usage is 940. For all the other islands is 500 kilowatt hours. So when you add this total, our cost for our lower cost of power, but because of our higher consumption, because of our location, we're at 13-degree latitude versus all of these others are 20 degrees, which is cooler. Therefore, results in a higher consumption for the island, and therefore, that's why our cost is 234, while everybody else is at 180 or 174. So therefore, you know, if you have 234, you kind of get to the affordability range. And the others that can continue to do this, $180 is a lot more affordable than what we pay here. Okay. But again, this is just added information for, you know, as people compare us in this whole thing.
And just before you leave this page, just for the record, in board books on page 32, we have different numbers.
That's right. I apologize.
Okay, so just update it for Tuesday.
There's 4 that I need to update.
Yeah, as long as it's Tuesday for the record. That's
Thinking about it this morning. You know,
Yeah.
polish it
The
up.
analysis is the same, just for the record, on Tuesday, put the right number. We don't want anybody accusing us of not putting the right number.
Yeah. Energy cost sharing analysis. Okay, right now, the battery that is being put into the system is really to help.
What page is it?
It's on the handout.
It's in the new handout.
It's not in the board.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Everybody got one?
Yeah, we don't have.
My bad. Sorry. I didn't see it. Thank you.
This analysis is trying to show, okay, well, how much does the battery cost? I showed you earlier that if everybody paid for the battery for the 40 megawatt that we have, it's about 1.002 cents per kilowatt hour. But really, that's if everybody's paying their fair share of the system and reliability. But what's happening now is that the non-net metering are going to pay for this new battery, and therefore it's going to continue to degrade. They're not going to get what they paid for. No? So how may this work? And then furthermore, this is an exercise to show how much. Because some of the discussions in the public hearing was how about GPA put the battery in and then charge us. And to me, then, like I said to them, I think that makes a lot more sense because of economies of scale. As I have calculated calculated before, shown that it costs about 7 cents per kilowatt hour for a home battery for you. And that's for every set. And all we need is one set really to make the
Test.
system smooth. If you want to go up the line, then great, you probably need 2 sets or 3 sets. So add 7 for each set, you know, and that will give you an idea. So that's my estimate based on home. This is the estimate now. If, for example, for a customer under any new program or what,
Test.
the current condition, and even in my case, I was just looking at, moving forward. I was more concerned moving forward than moving backwards, and addressing the people today. So this, as I told him, I was looking at solar batteries power. So therefore, there's 2 ways you do that, no? You see it's $27, and then, so therefore, when you take that, and the amount of energy that 27 megawatt will make in a year, the cost for the battery, if it was done by GPA for net metering customers, is about,
Two cents, 1.9 cents, 2 cents.
1.9 cents a kilowatt hour versus the 7 that I mentioned earlier. So there is the economies of scale in having us do the battery. That's the point for that one. So again, if you do try to allocate it to systems, it's easier probably administratively to handle it based on the kilowatt capacity of the plant. So therefore, if you do it that way, the total kilowatts was 23,000, blah, 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 by that, this number 691 divided by that is about, the average is 11.46 kilowatt per customer. So the average would be 27. Now, if you only 10, then 10 times 1, you'll be below 27 per month. Because you don't want the small units paying for the commercial units. So I recommend it be on a dollar per kilowatt. That's like a,
not a flat dollar, you're just saying that's the average. So
yeah,
I'm gonna pay
whatever
more.
that goes
Based
per
on
kilowatt
based
is,
on 2 cents a
that's your flat rate per month.
So the bigger your system is, you pay times 2 cents, you pay a little more. The smaller your system, times 2 cents, you pay a little less.
So the analysis is not, I don't really see it as apples to apples though, right? I mean, it makes sense.
Mhm.
If this is the alternative to requiring somebody to buy their own battery, it solves the intermittency issue, right? But someone with having their own battery has full use of that, other than solving intermittency, right? So when the power, there's no power, they have power. This just solves intermittency, right? They don't necessarily have storage power.
But the issue is whether they need one battery to solve intermittency, right? And
So
that
they'll get
one
some storage
battery
out of that.
gives them perhaps maybe 50% energy for, so there's some benefit
They'll get
in
some storage
addition
out
to
of
that for them, right? Yeah. But all I'm saying is that you need at least one which is about 7 cents.
But the batteries that in this analysis solves intermittency, right? It doesn't necessarily solve the storage issue. And I know that maybe it could get to that point where you can actually dispatch power if you had it kind of localized. But this analysis really is just intermittency, right? There's no storage.
We can add it cheaper also by storage. So we can do that as a, I can work that out. If you notice the last bid we had was 11 cents. That's solar plus storage. The one before that was 8.5 cents just for solar plus frequency storage, but no, no shifting storage.
Yeah.
So, and so for most homes, I believe it's going to take more than one.
Over a 20-year
Because
period.
if you look at the Tesla, which was mentioned also in the public hearing, that's I think a 4 kilowatt machine which gives you enough load to capacity, pump to power your motors or whatever in the residential, and 15 kilowatt hours. But on the average, you need for a 1,000 kilowatt hour home, you need 30 kilowatt hours per day. So therefore, you need at least 2. So there are some there's some additional advantages with the 7, but I don't think we can provide that if it's cheap.
But still on a cash flow basis, right? This makes better. You're almost financing it for them, and it's
When
a payment
financing,
plan. It's like a subscription.
Plus, we're taking advantage of that utility scale storage is cheaper, and we dispatch utility scale storage, and we don't have to worry about 2,600 people's different batteries and trying to deal with it, right? And this emerging thought about whether it's, no matter where the source of solar comes, the storage intermittency portion is better off controlled and provided by GPA and dispatched by GPA than to let the next 5,000 solar people in the next 20 years put it wherever the heck they're gonna put it, whatever sizes, maybe we can dispatch it, maybe we can't dispatch it. An emerging logic that may work good for Guam is let us be the storage intermittency provider and pass on the savings to those that wish to put it on their roof. And we dispatch it, we control it, and all of a sudden it's a collaborative effort, and we are, kind of like what some of the people said at the hearing, we are actually helping them help us by providing a battery that addresses frequency, intermittency, as well as storage. But we're more driving the car. We're not worried, we're not wondering, are 1,000 people walking in next year? Where are they walking in? What sizing? We can plan for as they add capacity. John and I were talking earlier today, right now we're averaging about 2 megawatts a year of additional renewables at the current level. In 10 years, it's going to take 10 years to add another 20 megawatts. That gives us plenty of time to plan for what size battery, where we might put it, what part is
Except
intermittency.
I'll show you something in a minute that
I
I'm
still
concerned.
have
But at least the logic, right? The logic is.
On a regular residential home, but not commercial, which is what's going to happen. And I'll show you in a minute.
Okay, but the question is, can you harness the charging of that battery by the NEM excess generation? Could you put the batteries in such a location
Yeah, I'm
that
sorry, go
you're,
ahead.
no, but could you localize those batteries in such a location where if there is in fact excess NEM generation, that it actually charges the battery?
Yes,
Rather than
and
you
what
generating power
what
to
will
charge it?
probably happen is that you, from the solar PV, you charge the batteries, and then you utilize it or send it out.
You mean the utility grade solar, or are you talking about the
No,
NEM
no, I'm
customers?
talking about the NEM
Okay.
battery. The utility scale, we're already controlling it by the whole system.
And that's what I would use.
This way, the utilities call,
Your battery energy at night.
the utility, the utility battery, right, is like another generator. It's just a limited generator, but it's a much faster generator. Meaning, if the thing drops, this thing catches, and holds it for an interim period, and then you adjust all your other generators to even up the
You
load,
have the time to do it.
and then it can recharge again the system.
But
And our generator can charge that battery.
the grid currently has the ability to harness any excess generation by NEM customers to charge it, or not yet?
No, right now we don't have any storage. We don't even have a
No,
battery.
if you get the battery, if this
Yeah.
concept works,
When that concept, when this 40 megawatt comes on, it's not a storage, it's just for intermittency.
No, I'm
what
talking about
happens is
future.
that,
I'm
what
talking
happens
about
is
the
that
future
when
and-
you have excess, it's really, the generator's back on. So you're competing for the same kilowatt, but but the solar PV, because this one, we have a generator that's floating. So if there's no excess, it provides, if there's excess, it backs off. That's why I mean, there's a direct correlation that if you have excess, we're avoiding fuel costs. So that one could be paid to the net metering customer. That's a true avoidance. No? But then it doesn't avoid the person running the power plant, all of these different things. That's all. This is where I'm mostly concerned because it was mentioned about, they're concerned about it killing solar for DOE. But there seems to be some issues that has to be recognized about when we're talking about DOE solar and all of that. Because again, first of all, and I'll show you in a minute because DOE solar is 22 megawatts. That's the size of what we have today if you were to put solar in all the schools. So therefore, we already have 23. It's like adding another one. So therefore,
They're like NEM.
they need a battery and they're going to come into the system.
They're equivalent to our current.
Let me give you some,
22 megs.
I'd like to bring back some issue, just for, we're trying to solve also the DOE issue, right? So I think there should be some conversations that go on in this. One, again, there have been analysis made by Department of Interior for the schools. In that analysis, it says something like invest some $13 million and you're going to save about $1.7 million a year. GPA, of course, through the CCU, when we refinanced the bonds, did a best school analysis. That analysis said we spend, you invest $41 million, and you're going to save $4.2 million a year in reduction in your power bill. Okay, so again, here it is, 2018, 43 million kilowatt hours and 68 megawatt demand. That's the peak demand for all the schools. If you take what's the demand of each one and different, not coincidental, but not at the same time. So their cost for 30 about 30 cents. Their load factor is 7.3%. In other words, we have to have the capacity, but they're utilizing it only 7.3. Typical residential is about 57%. So we're getting some recovery through the energy. Here, we're not. We're just having all this capacity for them. So therefore, if you wanted to, if the law is saying that they're working to pass or was passed before, 80% of the energy. So 80% of 43 million is 34. So that's what they could contract for. So 34, if you convert that, what size of solar PV rooftop are you looking at for all the, a total of 22 megawatts. 22.
And they're currently at what?
So right now they don't have solar, but really when they
What their usage is?
to generate this amount of energy from solar, they need 22 megawatts.
Of solar.
Of solar.
Like a
solar
Dundas.
and all the different rooftop total, no? So some places
No.
will have 100, some will have 500, some will have.
But we have 5 schools that we don't own.
Yep.
How's that supposed to be factored in?
Well, I'm not quite sure yet. I know the last time was just.
See, but that's-
But this is just total load for
No,
now.
but that's the flaw in that law, see? Or that proposed legislation, they no talk about.
But we can go to, even on the lease ones, right? You can go back to them and say, okay, to help DOE, you go put a solar system on their roof. But what John is describing that, if in a perfect world, we could push a button and put solar PV in all the schools, we would need 22 megs.
Right.
For the moment, we'll figure out how to pay for it, but for now, the capacity, the need is 22 megs. Now we figure out how do you pay for it, right? But that's the first step is, DOE is basically the size of a Dundon, or the size of 2,600 houses right now that produce 24 megs, right? That's the size of the system we would have to put on their collective roofs all over the island to carry their load with
To
solar.
achieve an 80% reduction.
An
in
80%
energy
reduction.
Through solar PV. Now, of that amount that we're talking about here, 5.3 million is avoiding cost on fuel, but then the $5 million is really used to pay the grid. That's their share.
Sure of
Okay,
what's gonna happen.
which is, again, our $3 million is gonna go away, and still be tied into the system and still have all this impact, no? So, there's a thing about solar PV, you're gonna save all this money, but really taking away from saving yet the DOE entity, but
Redistributing
who's
costs.
paying for it?
The
ratepayers.
non-NEM customers.
Yes, it's almost another tax, if you will.
Exactly.
I don't like to say that.
Dude, these
That's the
Democrats,
reality.
They're raising those taxes, and yet they're getting
Under
surplus.
Democrats, I love it. That is so
Okay,
good.
so-
See that? They're true Democrats.
So the question becomes with
I'm gonna put that
ESS and
Facebook
without
link.
ESS.
They're
right?
raising taxes.
So here, $3 a kilowatt for that 66 million, this thing is not free.
Exactly.
When you're talking about even with all solar, you're investing, you're committing yourself to the payment of a $66
That's a
million
school.
investment,
No.
okay?
It's a small school.
So
Let me give you some math.
So therefore, what does that mean? With all solar PV, yes, you're gonna come down to 16 cents a kilowatt hour, because of course the grid is you're avoiding a lot of costs in the grid. And therefore, your savings is 4.3. So this is the number I keep hearing, we're gonna save 4 million, and we're gonna use it to fix the schools and all of that, okay?
New schools,
So who's paying for that? I already mentioned 5 million is coming from the ratepayer. With frequency battery, therefore, I worked out the numbers, now the investment becomes 99 million. Okay? Just to make it, because remember, 22 megawatts is coming in. That's not a piece of, that's not
change.
that's not a 2,000 a year.
So,
How are they gonna pay for that?
Therefore,
Exactly.
that's the amount, so it's 24 cents a kilowatt hour. So therefore, the savings is really 1.5.
It's only 10% of their bill.
So do you want to invest $100 million to save
$1.5 million.
1.5? Or go back and maybe take a look at putting 41 million and save 4 million a year, or other things, because if you don't go and make the school efficient, and that efficiency project really, when it goes in, you know what it's gonna do? It's gonna upgrade all the equipment, so, and then if you maintain it, the warranty, then you got a good school. This other one, all you're doing is putting in rooftop to supply an inefficient system.
Have
So
we,
by putting in the efficiency first, and then come in with the PV, now you can.
Chip away at that 100.
But again, this tends to get lost, so I'm trying to bring everything back, because I know you're trying to find, hopefully, help them with a solution to the DOE, right?
John, are you gonna present this during the hearing?
well, the hearing's done already.
Oh, when was the hearing, today?
No, they haven't, the bill's on the floor.
Oh, no.
It's in session next week.
Yeah. So, let's go back, because one of the, I'm not sure if the motivation is JFK owners or the leaseback school, they're gonna refinance their bond, because it's now the 10th year, and they can do it, and they wanna take the savings on that bond
ever gets out of
to invest into the question we as GPA should go is look, what do you really need and how much it's gonna cost?
For the school.
Or just, no, just JFK, just JFK first. Because we already know, John, you guys did Okadu, and you said it was a bad deal. The agreement, to my understanding, was not, the escalation clause would have put them already at 30-some cents, right?
My recommendation there.
They can't hear?
Yeah, they can't hear you
Okay.
from the outside.
Well, that was the best part, man.
Sorry.
Go back to the tax on
Sorry,
the
Mike.
GPA rate.
Like,
Back to that. How much is the tax on
My,
the GPA rate?
yeah,
Just read
my
the top line.
recommendation there was the negotiations complied with the law.
Correct.
But it wasn't it could have been done better. We made some recommendations and they did make some change, but it's still the percentages were higher. You know, and then they were gonna go in with 23 cents. We got it down to 18. But even at that point, I said, no, it complies with the law, and so, okay. But as far as whether that was the best deal, I think we could,
Could do
have
better.
done better. So that's the, even though I approved, that was my recommendation there.
So then going back to the bill as proposed, first of all, it has no funding source, so I'm not even sure how to release an RFP about a funding source, or PPA for that matter. But, I mean, there's part about go and talk to GPA and you're gonna get technical advice at no cost.
So as far as I think the bill is there always, for the primary part is saying, allow DOE to procure away from GSA. I think that's what we were supporting, okay, that entity will do that. All the other stuff, whether remove parts for GP technical, hoping that we can work with DOE and say, look, let's see whether this is the best path forward. Now, if they just want to go straight to solar PV, well, I have no control over that. But all I'm saying is that this is the reality of the impact. And a lot of times the ratepayer gets lost behind because, it's about affordability. Okay. Sorry.
How much is on a kilowatt-hour basis, how much would this $5 million a year burden shift cost the GPA rate under the current proposal before DOE that was passed by Francis, it already is passed?
No, it's on the floor.
So under the current proposal before the legislature now, your analysis says that because of the way it's written, it would shift $5 million a year in cost away from DOE, but to GPA ratepayers, right? So our base rate is $150,000, right? 150 million? So it's like a 3% increase in the base rate. So like 0.3 cents, right? Because we're at 10 cents, it'd be like 0.3 cents. It's $5 million a year, right?
What's 5 over 160?
It's like 3 times 16.
That's like 3%.
Four's not here, it's 3. Right, 4.8, right?
48 is 16 times 3, yes.
It's 3 cents, right?
Yep.
And so it's equivalent to 3/10 of a cent. Not 3 cents, not 30%, right? It's only 3/10 of a cent. Yeah, because 30% would be 50, not 1/6, it would be 16 million. Right? I'm doing that right, right? It's 3/10 of a cent. Correct? Okay. So now, to some that looks small, but to we would be raising all other ratepayers 0.3 of a cent per kilowatt hour to cover the estimated cost to implement the proposal before the legislature, that the legislature is considering to allow DOE to contract for renewables. Is that the way to understand your analysis?
Well, like I said, I'm hoping that when it says technical advice of GPA, that DOE will come to us and we have a discussion on that. And that's not the true result, but potentially, yes, you can go do a power purchase agreement. Under the net metering, if that's what the law says, then yeah, then that's the net result.
Okay.
But we have to understand.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back in time. When I looked at this slide, okay? This one says, because the way this works is DOE is gonna be looking at things. They're either gonna pay to put solar on their roofs, they get a savings, or they're gonna power purchase from a company. They don't get savings, in my opinion. Because if they have $41 million to invest, then they can cut their power bill and save $4 million a year. If they go to a power purchase agreement with somebody, they don't have the 41 million. Therefore, the guy's gonna say, well, you're paying GPA right now, I'm gonna put on so many solar pieces, you're gonna save that, the savings I want you to pay me for putting the solar on.
Which is where it works now.
Which is the way it works right now with the other people, right? So therefore, at the end of the day, there's no savings. Because if they have 41 million, yes, there's savings. Because then they're gonna buy their own panel, put it on, and it's the guy, it's the people who.
See, where's the money gonna come from?
Wait, just a minute, I need to go through this. Let me go through this, okay? So you have people who avail themselves of the 30% tax credit. So what did? They paid the $60,000 up front, or they paid whatever that amount of money is up front to put solar in their rooftops. Forget the battery point, just put solar on their rooftop. So when they did that, their bill from GPA dropped down to just the customer charge. Because they're producing power and going back and forth. That's the model. If you don't have the 60,000, 80, whatever that number is to invest, then you do the zero down.
Money down.
No money down, so what, because you have no money. So what happens is, the company says, well, you gotta pay me now every month. And that's what I'm trying to say. I don't think they realize that power purchase agreement is not the way to go. If they have $41 million, they can save some money, because they're doing a damn customer who owns the system. But if they go through and do a purchase agreement, all they're doing is writing two checks now. One to GPA every month and one to the power producer.
And they don't know whether when the bids come in, whether it's gonna be a $41 million system, a $50 million system.
Or a cheaper system.
Right?
But
Well, they don't, the point, the risk is when they put out the bid and they don't know, if it's anything above 41 million, they're sunk. They're not gonna be
And
saving
the
any
reason
money.
why I bring this up is because when they tried to do this with one of the lease schools at Ukadu, and the guy put in his proposal, and there was the escalation clause of the next 30 years. We showed, the reason why it didn't go any further was because we showed DOE. At some point, you're gonna be paying them more than you're paying us. And so, where's your savings? And so that's why I'm saying, the bill before them is, the problem is, the flaw is, if they have the money, if you have 41 million, and it could be more than 41 million, but your estimate is 41 million. If you have 41 million, then you can save it.
His estimate is 66.
66 when you have the
Okay.
storage.
Okay, if you have storage. But
No,
I'm
without,
gonna-
it's 99
41
with
is to
storage.
invest in energy efficiency equipment.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Then I'm sorry.
66.
66. So do you have
For the
66?
capacity requirement, right?
This is, so do you have $66 million? Because if you have $66 million, then you can save money.
Then you would be current on your accounts payable.
And you don't need to-
Exactly what I
And so
said.
therefore, you know, I mean,
The other-
one of the things, St. John, is, I think you need to do is, I don't know, we need to, the flaw in this whole thing is they were going forward, because it was being pushed by the PPA people. Okay?
No money down, guys.
Yes, they were pushing
This is
it.
no money down.
And so,
Exactly what
and
this
so,
is.
I would tell you that, go back to that one with Okadu, that proposal, and say, here's the difference. In Okadu, if you had this amount of money to do it yourself, you would save money. But if you don't, here's what they wanted. There's no savings. Just to show it to them.
Is there any way we can estimate what JFK's solar power needs are gonna be, based on their usage? Yeah.
We know what their current usage is.
We know the whole system needs
Well, see,
22 megs.
if you read that bill, 80% is Guam, 20% has to be the leased schools. That should be the mix right now.
Right,
Oh, I don't
but we
Because
also,
because that's all they wanna finance.
but we also know, because at the end of the day, they're paying the lease school and they're paying their own school, right?
Right,
They gotta buy 22 megs of capacity. And one thing that's not also being said is, that's based on, before they do any energy efficiency.
correct.
If they would actually go back into their, even the older schools, and upgrade their energy efficiency, first their whole load would drop. Then the size you need to meet that load would be smaller. Right now, based on their current consumption in crappy schools with no energy efficiency, they're gonna need 22 megs, and they're trying to do it no money down,
Crazy.
right? And the result could be,
The senators are pushing this.
because they don't know what, they
Carboneal
don't
school.
understand what they're
Is that-
getting into.
Is
that
there
a-
a way to give them
done?
this information?
I think we at least should.
Try.
Because
Try.
that's the proof in the concept.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
tried to ask that today, but.
Yeah.
Are you gonna meet
'Cause
with some of the
that's-
senators
I'll get you
Is that the only
meeting.
school that we,
before they vote?
Yeah, that's the one we.
that's the model school right now,
yeah,
right?
We invested some money to show the
The,
realization.
Oh,
on the
okay.
best, on the best.
Okay, so you got a
yeah.
So
real
see
world
what-
example,
see what we
and you
have
got
by,
John's
like you
Okay.
said.
whole world
So
example.
there's two clauses in the bill as it is already. First, in the legislative findings, it says that it has to be in the best financial interest of the government of Guam, so you just need to present them with this to show them that it's not. But they also need to know what's in the best financial interest of the GPA rate.
Ratepayers.
Because it's a subsidy.
Yeah,
But the other thing
because it
is,
is in the interest of Guam, they'll save 5 million. But what will happen is GPA ratepayers will have to pick up 5 million. So it's a tax on GPA ratepayers
If
to
they
save
have the
money
money,
on,
if they have the money to make the investment.
or even if it's no money down, if
No,
if
no,
the
if
math
there's no
came-
money gone,
it-
they
it'll
have
be
no
worse.
savings. It's worse.
Well, it depends on the bid. So you don't, I'm
That's
with you
the
in
thing.
that, in a perfect world, they put out a bid for 22 megawatts, you put it on the roof, we'll become like a NEM customer, we'll talk to GPA and get reimbursed. That's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
The way this is proposed, it's no money down.
I know, so I'm saying, John, maybe if you could develop some of these things, and maybe we could see it, then I would suggest you just put it in as information. Say, we would just proffer this as information to.
You don't have
well,
much time
I
before the
think we need to
session
get
is
involved.
over.
I think the commissioners need to get involved.
It's on the session, but
We need,
we need to go talk to the two main sponsors.
Who's that, Richelle?
No, it's Selena and Senator Joe.
But did you address this in the hearing? The part where they say the legislative findings show that, it says that, Legislatura finds that there is a need to address the budgetary challenges of the Guam Department of Education, including those related to the rising cost of electricity? That you have the current rates, you have a chart of where the rates have been and how steady they've been. Then you have the additional PV coming on and the new power plant. How are rates gonna rise? They're only gonna go down, right?
The cost of.
But was that addressed in the?
The only thing that we addressed and that really is that they were moving it from GSA to GPA. And then
back to themselves.
And then in there, I was putting my hat on that, they're gonna come to us for some
I can
advice
help
that
you
we
with
can
some
hopefully.
advice.
But again, as far as control, advice is advice, no? It's
Yeah, they don't have to take it.
Yeah, and so all I'm saying now is, I have some other thoughts that would help really achieve, including for less money, you can get the same amount of savings.
Yeah.
And
And-
then for,
And
again,
all the
less
schools are
stress, and you're not,
benefiting.
you're not.
Well,
I think we should.
What do you wanna do?
I don't know.
We gotta.
No,
Them
I-
and the
Yeah,
public.
no, but see, John, even if you're gonna do the savings by upgrading and doing those things, you still need an investment of 41 million. And I don't know, they don't
No.
have 41 million,
But
so
you
that's
see,
the point.
they're also saying that they will take the savings and put it into the schools, right? So,
But there are no
what I'm saying
savings.
is if you put the money into saving, you're saving the school, and then you don't even have to supply that anymore.
John, one of the things I remember is, I'm sorry.
When-
No.
there,
One
right?
of the things I remember is when we were in there, and they made that claim that we can save you 4 million, 5 million.
Don't spend it.
Yeah, no, I remember you did say, we disagree with that, we don't believe you're
Don't be
gonna save.
spending that money yet until.
Don't save, you're not gonna have that savings. And the whole idea is, because it depends on how you approach it.
Yeah.
If you have cash to invest, the best of both worlds, you invest $41 million in doing upgrades to your thing, and then you put PV on top, then you can really save the government of Guam money. Okay? That's where your savings are. but you need $80-100 million.
John,
They don't have.
quick question on this slide, John. Oh, I had a question on the slide. The solar PV cost per kilowatt hour that you reference here, that's based on 80% productivity or 100%?
This is 80%.
It's 80%?
Yeah, because the total consumption for 2018
It's on 80, okay.
was 43 million.
And is that what you're getting out of Dundon?
No, but if you're gonna do 80% of the energy, you work backwards, and it's a 20% capacity factor. So,
So what's it, that's the 22 megs that you came up with?
yeah.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
good.
No, I'm just referring to, but you're assuming that 100% of the electricity will come from the PV cost rate, right?
Yeah,
But that's
the-
not the, because the intermittency, that's not the case, right? How
That's
do you
why
factor in the intermittency?
Yeah, actually, you come from that 22 megawatts, we will produce that amount of energy.
Energy only.
And the battery is making sure it comes into the system like this instead
So
of
that's
like
on
this.
top of that.
No, your analysis without ESS,
Oh,
right? It
Yeah.
assumes that 100% of their needs come from PV.
80%.
Which is the law.
I'm using this 34 million here.
Yeah,
You
which
took
is 80% of
80%.
And earlier I had 40, their total consumption in 2018, I believe, was 2019? 2019 was 43 million. Actually, it's right here. Their consumption in the past few years have been 44, 43, 42, back up to 43. So I'm using this, so you take 80% of that, that's the 34. So,
And 80% is the number you're using because you're factoring in intermittency?
oh no, I'm sorry. No, that's in the law.
That's in the law.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying though, so that's in the law.
Yeah.
But what, of that 80%, what are they actually gonna achieve? It's not gonna be 100%.
That's if
No, no.
it's sunny all day.
So
It's
that's,
gonna,
so this,
it's gonna achieve on the average about 20%. Depends on the type of equipment they bring in. It could be 18, it could be 22. But on the average, that's the experience on the, on the.
Their range is about 20 plus or minus megawatts of solar PV would be required to put on their system to reduce to cover 80% of their load, right?
Yeah, but again, Mr. Lintoke, there is some losses when you come through the battery.
Yep.
So you probably have to add another 5% or so to that.
no, I'm talking without battery.
Oh, okay, for batteries, then that's about what you need to produce around 34 million kilowatt hours.
Right, okay, so that's what you can produce, right? So you got 80% of that number, you're gonna be able to produce your needs. But you're not gonna be able to recover, you're not gonna be able to generate all of your needs from that, because you gotta account for the fact that the weather patterns or intermittency. So is this savings assuming that you're gonna get 100% of that 80% capacity to achieve your needs? Cause it's not true, right? They
No,
have to go back to
it's-
GPA and
It's
purchase.
saying that you need 20% of that capacity to be able to achieve your goal of 34 million kilowatt hours. Because if you get 22 megawatts times 8,760 hours, which is 100%, you get so much, right? But you multiply that times 20% because on the average, some days you're generating 30, 40, 50%. Other days you're generating nothing. So on the average for the whole year, you're going to net out about 20% of that whole total. Yeah. It's just that's why you give them the whole year to zero out, and then the other year is zero. Yeah.
I think the strongest argument was, and this is what they didn't get, and I was trying, if you own the system, you save money. If you don't own the system, there's no money saved. Yeah, because, and that's the experience of all these people who are in that movie.
But it's also predicated on the fact that one, in the legislative findings, it says rising energy costs.
Yes, I
And
get
this
that.
is a stable energy, this number is,
Our bill is
should
gonna
go
go down.
down.
Yeah. I think Commissioner Mitaku's right, John, you need to point that out, that as we've consistently said, as we've talked about the new generation and repowering generation, and increasing to 50% renewables, the goal, as we've increasingly said, even if we just get to 25%, you're going to see a marked drop within anyway. And if we get to 50%, you'll see an even bigger drop.
Plus the reduced cost, right? What do you say, ride the technology up and the cost curve down? So in 10 years from
buying it all
now,
now.
right, but in 15 years from now, we'll be at 50%? How much would it cost them at that point, right? So,
And you compare it, just what you and the chairman do, and then you compare it, if you stay with GPA and our average price keeps dropping, you have to compare it to that average falling price, not to 2014's.
yeah.
I think
But the question
what's
is-
going to happen is really, and again, depends how further renewables get down, no? What you're seeing in the cost in 2022, 23 could go down a little bit more probably, but more importantly, what the 50% gives you is a more stable cost, so that you're not impacted by, you're up and down on fuel. So therefore, we're hoping that that becomes the affordable range by people going to demand-side management, reducing their consumption, and that rate is an affordable range that makes people, electricity affordable, and then we're trying to make it stay and sustainable. See?
There's the right way to migrate DOE to a solar policy, and there's the wrong way to do it.
But how are we gonna get this information to them before they vote?
I think we need to summarize it, maybe a letter from the chair or John B. perhaps, maybe just John B., right? John B., based on his presentation to us and the concerns, maybe John, your concerns. And you write it to them and you say, these are our concerns. And the other piece that's still not being mentioned, and by the way, based on our analysis, you're just shifting the money you think you're saving from DOE, you're just shifting it back to the GPA ratepayers, right? So there's no savings to the overall community. You're just increasing you're creating a higher energy tax on GPA ratepayers to reduce the DOE tax on regular taxpayers. And so you actually haven't gained anything. You're just shifting the burden. But you at least need to disclose, senators, to the whole community that, hey, when I save money for DOE, I'm raising your bill. Is that okay with you? It's a zero-sum game. And they don't see it, right? So, I'm with I recommend, I like what I'm hearing from my colleagues in the chair, that if John B. can craft a letter of concern, or however you want to word it, John, that this is what, you asked for our technical advice? Here's our technical advice. Here's our technical advice.
And also release it to the media.
At no cost to you, but we are trying to avoid a significant cost to GPA ratepayers,
And
right?
release it to the media also, so they can publicize.
So and to the public, because here's what we would do. To me, if this bad idea becomes law, you know how we put on the GPA bill the supplemental annuity surcharge. We would put the DOE subsidy surcharge, because it's the disappointment I have in our senators is that they don't understand or appreciate that it's not free. Someone is going to pay this. And why you're saving over here, at least acknowledge that you're increasing the power bill for GPA ratepayers to save the power bill for DOE ratepayers. And so you haven't really changed the paradigm. You just shifted what is the oldest thing we complain about? We take money out of Peter's pocket and put it into Paul's pocket. But have we increased the savings? No. We've just shifted the burden, right? And they at least need to acknowledge that shift, okay?
I'd like to know for the record that really I supported that bill, because it's really to put the scenario from GSA to, and that was the highlight of that bill, and then also the idea of technical advice and all of that. But what gets me nervous really is this. In the testimony, Superintendent Fernandez said $4 to $5 million of savings. In the testimony in the outreach, the same numbers coming up again. So I'm saying, where's all these numbers coming from and what? So I'm saying, I'm worried that this is already fixed in the mind, that that's not the way, and that's not my thoughts as to how I would like to share my technical experience, no?
That's why I have
And so I just for the record, that's why I just wanna say, no? Yeah.
That's why I think the letter should go to you, and it should start with, your support was for this and this. To the, and the willingness to assist them, provide technical assistance. That was your comment and your support for the bill as you saw it. The bill is morphing into something different, and you want them to be aware of the concerns you have and the potential consequences. And the possible consequences, you know, so that when you give them the letter, they say, wait, you support it. No, you start out by saying, my support for the bill, the original bill was this and this. But I have to let you know that I have some big concerns with the bill as I see it now and where you're going with it. And then I'm going to list them out for you. I just want you to be aware of these concerns. Okay? That's what I suggested.
And John, it's your letter and your words, but the bottom line would be an additional surcharge to GPA ratepayers of $5 million a year, or about 0.3 cents of a kilowatt hour. The savings from DOE would simply be shifted to the GPA ratepayers, right? So, you know, it is not correct to presume that there's an absolute savings to the community. All you're doing is shifting the burden from the Guam budget that supports DOE to the GPA ratepayers, who will have to pay for the cost of this proposal. It's going to cost the community $5 million a year. As the chairman says, you're going to put 60, 90 million on a system that don't come from nothing. So, all right. So who pays for it? Well, as you describe it, as the technical consultant that is in the bill, your technical analysis is saying this will cost a cost shift from DOE to GPA ratepayers, right? Now, if you still want to pass it, fine. But at least disclose to the public that this is the impact, and we would have to pass that along to GPA ratepayers in the form of a surcharge, similar to the legislative surcharge for supplemental annuities and retirees.
But John, the other big thing is that, you know, if this were to pass and DOE went out and actually put out an RFP or something, when the bids come back or the proposals come back, then they're going to see there's no savings. And that's the thing that, you know, the bill says you have to have savings. There's no savings. No.
But what they don't recognize, but there's not but that savings is simply being transferred to GPA ratepayers.
No, because DOE is still going to have to pay that power producer.
Right. But
DOE still has to pay that power producer, so that $5 million in savings is not going to be there. You may have a small $500,000 savings, but initially, but you're not going to. What I'm trying to say is, I view it the way the NEM customer who afforded and paid for his own system, and the NEM customer who went for the zero
cheaper
down.
to do it on your own.
Yeah, this guy won, this guy lost. Because I have so many people who have come to me, beside, you know, like you, Judy, and they said to me, I thought I was going to save money. I'm saving $50 a month. I'm saving $10 a month.
So, Mr.
I'm
Chairman,
not saving money anymore.
So, Mr. Chairman, maybe the
So-
other thing, John, and again, it's your letter, but the way, what I'm hearing is that the cheapest way to have done this is exactly what the chairman is saying. If you had your own money and built your own system, and you just put out a bid for a provider to put a system on your roof, right? That would be the cheapest way to do it.
That would be the way to save money.
Right, that would actually have a true savings to DOE, right? And the government of Guam. However, this approach is essentially the equivalent of no money down. And all the challenges, and the bid will be put out in a way that bidders are gonna bid a no money down structure. Because they're fronting the money, they're gonna sign you up for 25 years, they're gonna, escalators, all those things, because they gotta recover their $66 million, right? And with interest.
That's not their risk.
And, exactly. So, you know, and that's at 5% interest, right? It could be much higher. So senators, you know, please be aware that your proposal as written would creates a situation where DOE is signing essentially a no money down, and you're gonna have these bids. No one knows how these bids are gonna be written, and if they're all written like no money down, you either have to take it or leave it, and you're back in the same boat. If you don't take it, you're back in the same boat you're already in, right? But if you take it, you risk the no money down risk, and you will create a cost shift from DOE to GPA ratepayers at an estimate of about $5 million a year. Everyone's bill will go up about 0.3 cents per kilowatt hour.
So I think, okay, so I think you've got, yeah. So, okay.
Okay. Is there
Last,
anything?
Mr.
Sure,
Chair,
go ahead.
issue for discussion, cost of service. If you recall, this issue came up about the condominium rates versus non-con, and to be treated like residential. So we've addressed this in the past that the percentage is really not that big or what. However, they did file the petition with PUC for, and as we had said, that's the right venue for doing that. So they did, and then so Fred asked us if we can get a cost of service study through our consultant, which we did, and this is what the rates are. So again, in all fairness to those that are asking in the condominium, really, back when the fuel prices was real low, back in the 70s, or 80s, and when they're constructing these condominiums with 1 meter, right? The price of energy is real cheap. So therefore, again, they put 1 meter, put all the condos and everything, but people are residential customers. So here we are, I'm sorry, 20 years, so 70, 90, more than 20 years later, right? And now, it is a higher cost, right? 20-some, 30 cents a kilowatt hour in some. So therefore, they're trying to be treated just like the residential customers. And when you look back, really, they have been there for like 30 years. So potentially you could, in my mind, I could accept that something like that be done, because in a way they have been in a way subsidizing also the residential customers. Because on page 64, you start to see the imbalance between all of the thing. And of course, there hasn't been a rate case in the past since 2013 to try and see whether we migrate some of this cost. So still a lot of work to do, but the thought I have, and again, I'll be asking you if you can take a look at it, think about it. We can discuss it on Tuesday and see what we might recommend to the PUC, because they're asking for a recommendation. If you allow them to use residential rates, then I would accept that. I could recommend that really just those that are existing today, and any future condos, no matter what it is, has to put in individual meters. So these customers have been there, for 20, 30 years. So, and they've been working on this thing for. Yeah.
John, when was the last time we did a full-blown cost of service study? Do you remember?
I remember, was
Anybody?
it back in 2013?
What is it?
When we were gonna do the base rate,
2013?
yeah, after.
When? What, 2013?
I think it was around that time.
Yeah, that's when the last year.
Time for one. Time for one, John. What do you have?
Base rate case.
Yeah, we have to do that.
What we need to do is, there are some anomalies.
Yeah.
We need to clarify them and correct them. I'm just saying, think about that. And maybe one of
The only difference I see is that if you tinker with all of this thing today, then there'll be a major shifting. So, and so I'm thinking, and again, I'm sorry, I'm just thinking out loud, Mr. Chair. When we put in the rates for the new power plant, and that's something you're going to go out in about a year or so to do. You can recommend how to do it. For this one, I'm not sure what the PUC will do in itself, but again.
This was their ask, PUC, right?
Yeah. So, and then if you look here, this is what it's saying. This is the cost of service as it is today. Now, how do they shift? Because remember, again, like here, I think what our cost of service person said, this 8% to 0% is like 500,000 a year in revenue, no? Reduction to us. But
Yeah, John, the only thing that you have to understand is, the demand charges, I'm sorry, you wanted to say something, can I just finish? The thing about it, John, is the buildings that are on demand charge, based on putting that energy in. So if you have a building that's this kind of a building, units in it, and then you have another building that is office space, but they're still designed with 1 meter and the same kind of load factor, the other building's gonna say, wait, if you're giving him a break, then I should also get a break. That's the only, I'd ask you to think about that for a minute. Because if demand charges are a little bit different, and there's a reason for demand charges, okay? And so, I just want to make sure that if we address one group, a building, the load characteristics, John, and the stuff that you need for building, if you have a building again that has residential units, and then you have a building that's an office building, basically, but their load profile, their load characteristics are the same, why are you saying this one can go down and this one won't? The other guys are gonna come running in and say, wait. Okay, give that some thought for a minute, okay? Yeah. Let me think some more. I think it's a good discussion. I think it's a good discussion to have, John. Okay, I get that, but can you give that some thought? Okay? Yes.
And then, Mr. Chair, can you just make sure we put that on the board?
Yeah. Yeah.
What page?
Page 64, I think is what he said.
no,
It's different from us, so can you realign everything by Tuesday, please? Okay, so just make you put everything, but can you please put it in such a way that we can follow you? So that we can follow you, like you, and if it's in your general manager's report, that's fine, but we can follow you with it, rather than us. No, okay, great, wait. Commissioner Mchako had a question, I think. Time out.
Just going back to the one that you if that's just based on the current net metering payback, right? So that's a full rate. Now, would you support this bill if they adjusted it to the avoided costs? So maybe that's the trade-off. Maybe you're saying
I support our philosophy over there is really oil to jobs. No?
this would never make sense for a PPA if you went back to or you just did avoided costs, right?
There's avoided cost, and there's line losses, and that kind of stuff. No, we can. And stuff, but at least now they're paying their share into the grid, right? Even having that, but yeah, because as you can see, their capacity factor is only 7, or load factor, right? They ask for this many megawatts to be available for them, the big boss, but they only have 5 or 10 people in there, and we have, we make our revenue by how many people are in the bus, 5, so therefore it's not paying for itself, but we have to have it available for when they're not, so they need to pay their fair share, otherwise, avoided costs is the way, and again,
More things you can put in the letter.
yeah.
That's a good point. If we're going to do some more, Francis?
What? Yeah, go ahead.
Short recess?
No, you can keep going. I'm just going to.
Yeah, go.
Everyone just.
let's go. Yep.
Okay, so, colleagues, on Tuesday, John is asking us to change the NEM policy effective May 1st, requiring that all new NEM customers do batteries, must also come with battery storage or some sort of frequency control, right? And I was able to watch the hearing from off island, listening to the feedback, and I started to think of a different way to approach the solution than the one John has proposed. But ironically, we end up in almost exactly the same pew. And so I did some analysis, because it would change the way I know I would vote on Tuesday, and I want to propose an alternative strategy to achieve what John is trying to achieve, and then get John's feedback on that, whether he thinks that's a better way to do it, or to, because there's something John is proposing, but in his own analysis, I think there's a solution that he actually has that is the same as my solution that would be an alternative to requiring every new customer to put in a battery. We're requiring them to put in a battery because we're concerned that as you add renewables, you impact the system if you don't put in some sort of frequency regulation and/or battery storage. And in fact, we know we are currently the frequency regulator and storage for 2,600 NEM customers at no charge to them, but at a cost to other ratepayers, to the other ratepayers. So I thought about that, and I was really struck by Stan Wilson, who's an accountant, and his testimony that says, you know, for me to put in a battery is going to cost this much. If GPA would put in the battery, I'd be willing to pay a little more, because he understood from an accounting point of view that there is inequity that is benefiting NEM customers at the expense of non-NEM customers. This is for the chair, this is for the team. And so I ended up thinking about the same problem John thought about, but I reached a slightly different conclusion. But surprisingly, and it gave me confidence, John and I pretty much end up in the same pew, but it might change the way we would decide what to do with his proposal to require all future solar customers to come with their own storage / frequency control. And the analysis I'm passing out is what I worked on, and I need you to pull out this one that John provided to you, where he ends up at $27.88 a month, right? Okay, so here's what I started thinking about. You know, people are going, oh man, I got to put in a battery, this is going to kill the industry. I said, well, but you can't get free battery from other ratepayers. So how might we solve that? So what I did is I came up with, we'll go through it if you look at it. We had multiple hearings and analysis that shows that batteries are not cheap, especially for individual systems. The cost to an individual customer could approach $24,000 over 20 years. As John described earlier, you'd have to buy 2 batteries for the average house every 10 years. That's about $12,000, but they only last 10 years. So you got to buy another, in 10 years, you got to buy another 12. So you're going to spend over 20 years, $24,000 for a battery. Especially if we require this, right? Now John has corrected me slightly, but conceptually, the 40 megawatt battery that we're putting online at $40 million basically helps address the solar that we control, the glide path, right? As well as the impact of 2,600 customers that now produce 22, 24 megs plus or minus every day. We needed a 40 megawatt battery to help with the intermittency, frequency loss issues, and I argue it's a little bit of storage, but the key is that we had to spend $40 million to deal with the impact of our solar and 2,600 other people's solar. And if we don't do something and we continue to add solar, allow individuals to add solar, we're going to keep this movie going at the expense of other ratepayers who are relying just on GPA. So as I point out, either the individual is going to spend $24,000 on batteries, or we're going to spend money on a battery to deal with their impact. And right now, those folks don't pay for it. So I agree with John. I agree with John his proposal that we need to address the fact that if you're going to add more renewables, someone has to pay for the intermittency storage impact on the grid, okay? Now, GPA, and I believe this is a factual, GPA and utility scale storage and intermittency control is much cheaper than if 2,600 people went out and grabbed their own battery, right? And if we had another 5,000 customers in the next decade, you know, they're gonna be spread out all over the place, and we're gonna have to deal with them all over the place, whereas it would be cheaper for us to be their battery, be their controller, right? We can do it cheaper than they can do it, and we would control that asset and how it fits into the system and how we use it, right? So GPA, it's cheaper if we let GPA do it. In fact, one of the people testified about what if GPA, you know, helped us buy the battery or was the battery, right? And that's what we are now. We're already the battery, right? So I did this analysis. I took our $40 million, now you'll see in yellow, I took the 40 megawatt battery at $40 million. Now, I thought it was a 30-year loan. Turns out it's a 20-year loan, but just actually, it's surprising how the math almost ends up identical, right? So I took it at a 30-year loan. It's $1.3 million a year in debt service that GPA is now paying. And if the NEM customers are about 26 megs and Dun-Dun's about 25 megs, it's kind of like half of this impact is created by them and half of it is created by us. So I said, what if they paid for half of our $40 million battery and we paid for half of our $40 million battery? We would get, if we were able to increase the flat fee, the charge, for half of the debt service on that $40 million battery, when you do the math, it comes out to $255 a year, $21 a month additional on top. Right now, they only pay $15, right, John? $21. What did John come up with? $27 a month additional. Why? Because his debt service is 20 years, I did 30 years. But you can see that other than that, we're in the $20, $25 a month range that, as Stan Wilson said, hey, I'd pay a little more for you to be my battery. I'll pay a little more. And the magnitude of a little more, whether you do it John's way or my way, is somewhere between $21 and $28 a month. It's not $50 a month. It's not $900 a month, right? And so that started to convince me that it's better if we play the role of battery provider, frequency controller, pass on the benefits of utility scale purchases that we can do, not only to our own ratepayers, but to a NEM customer if they want to be a NEM customer, right? So at $21 a month, they actually would start paying, helping pay for that battery. And under my proposal, we would even ask existing NEM customers to pay that $21, right? We would, instead of, your 15 would go to 36, not a killer, right? You would pay the extra $21 a month, and we would start to get cash flow back from 2,600 people that we don't get any of this cash flow back, and it helps pay for a battery that is playing the same role for our solar farm that it would play the same role for their NEM on the roof, right? How does this compare to if the policy we say, from now on, you got to put on your own battery? So if you look at the stuff in the orange, right? 2 batteries at $6,000 each every 10 years, because the battery's only going to last 10, is $24,000. If you take $24,000 on a 10-year loan at 5%, it's $1,500 a year. It's $129 a month if we adopt this policy to a new NEM customer. You're going to have to go borrow the money from somebody or no money down or however the hell you do it, but your cost would be $129 a month if you got the money. As the chairman say, that's the cheapest way to do it. Versus $21 a month.
So why 10 years for the residential battery?
Because the battery's only going to last 10
20
years.
years for ours?
Because our utility scale battery lasts longer.
They last longer, or is it part of the purchase that they have to warranty it? So 40 million includes
Their replacement of it,
20.
yes, yeah. So the effective cost. Right. So the new proposal that John's suggested would cost a new NEM customer who had to get his own battery now, $129 a month, whereas if he would just help pay for the battery we have now and any future battery that we would add to the system as we add more NEM customers, it's going to be cheaper for them to pay us than for them to do it themselves. And then John points out that we're only averaging 15 to 20 customers a month now of new NEM customers. That's 2 megs a year. It's gonna take 10 years of that to get to 20 megs. Plenty of time for GPA to see the load, plan for it, and buy a battery as they add more capacity, if they wish to add more capacity. But it's cheaper if we do it, and we control the asset, we dispatch the asset, we maintain it. This is 129, doesn't count maintenance. You know, when they have to call the guy when the battery blows, you know, does something in year 3, I gotta call the guy and say, hey, can you come fix my battery? This is just the cost of the battery. So it would be cheaper for GPA to play that role of providing storage than to force the NEM customer, the future NEM customer, to do it on their own. And my proposal is we would even ask the existing NEM customers, hey, this battery is helping you. Would you pay, like Stan Wilson is willing to pay, an extra $21 a month to help pay for what a utility scale asset that is helping you and is helping us, but right now, non-NEM ratepayers are paying for it. Can you at least help us with 20 bucks a month? So that's what, and I was happy when John did his analysis, he came up at 28, 21, we're in the same pew, we're in the same neighborhood, right? So my question to us as colleagues and to John, because in fairness to John, he just saw this today, but I talked to him on the phone, he appreciates the concept. Right now, his proposals we adopt on Tuesday, you gotta have a battery effective May 1. I'm suggesting a different strategy for consideration of the body and management. And the alternative is this. If you look down at in the green alternative, right? Okay. So GPA will now provide utility scale storage intermittency control over time as individuals add renewable capacity. New and existing NEM customers will pick up $21, $28. You know, I love John's approach because it's on a kilowatts basis. It's a size basis. If you have a bigger system, you're gonna pay a little more per kilowatt. If you have a smaller system, you pay a little less. My math was just a flat average, right? But John's is a wiser one because it doesn't matter, it won't matter the size. You're gonna pay 1.9 cents a kilowatt, right? But on an average residential, it's about 28 versus my 21. Definitely affordable, right? The commercial pays an energy storage equivalent. Well, that's what I just said. So new commercial guys, even though they're bigger, they're gonna pay this 1.9 cents a kilowatt hour, right? And we collect that money from them, even though, let's say we don't add a battery for another 5 years. It's like a system development charge for battery storage and intermittency. We collect that money. That money helps reduce what current ratepayers are paying. They're paying the whole debt service on that 40 megawatt battery. We start to accumulate it and we reserve it so that when John says, hey gang, we gotta add another 8 megawatt battery or whatever it is, we've built a little system development charge, a bank account, and that buys down the cost for everybody. The other nice thing is, we all know that the cost of storage will go down over time. So John's $28 is gonna go down, my $21 is gonna go down over time. So that surcharge actually has a good chance of coming down as the technology improves and the cost improves, right?
So, but by saying that though, you're saying that the existing NEM customers, if we were to do this, would be locked into $21.
Or 28, or 1.9 cents a kilowatt, right.
John, what would it be if you just subsidized, or you just aggregated it to the entire ratepayer base? What would the net effect be?
The net effect is 0.002 cents.
It's still the 1.9.
So if you, no, if you just did a base rate.
I think that's the rest of the day now, no? To
No, what
everybody.
I'm saying is that you take these battery charges, and instead of a NEM customer paying $21 a month, you spread it out through the entire ratepayer base. What
It's
would it be?
about 0.002 cents a kilowatt hour.
Point
However-
0.002 cents.
However, because the NEP customers don't pay us anything.
No, you're gonna
Yeah.
address that in the changes to the net metering, right? We're gonna try and address that to the.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something different.
They're gonna address that by paying so much a month, right? Then the cost for the rest of the customers will be less than.
Yeah, exactly. That's for. But what I'm saying is for the battery storage, instead of just distributing it to the 2,600 NEM customers, if you wanted to go your route, right, instead of just the NEM customers, what about all the ratepayers? What would it end up being?
I think what it's showing is that the,
Right now, the non-NEM customers, all 50,000, not 2,000 that have, they are already paying the debt service on this battery. We're now just asking 2,600 people to contribute to that by paying $20 a month, so that the cost to the other ratepayers actually goes
No,
down.
I get it, but I'm saying, what if you increase that amount?
Increase which amount?
You make another surcharge, instead of 21 cents, it's a new surcharge, but it's spread out through 50,000 ratepayers rather than 26.
But the base rate of the other ratepayers is already paying for the battery.
I get that.
Right? But
I
right
get
now,
that.
we're not getting any money from the NEM customers to help pay that debt service.
Why should the regular ratepayers
Pay all of it.
Because it could be as low as 0.00 something cent.
But it's still 2 cents that the other guys are getting from other ratepayers. Why?
the rest of the ratepayers are not gonna need more batteries.
Correct.
No, but
Because they're not having an impact into the,
No, but you can
Yeah.
continue to address the battery needs as more people come onto solar.
more
By
NEM customers.
increasing that surcharge.
Yeah.
Like it'll be a battery surcharge.
But that surcharge now is just being applied to
Prospective.
new NEM
Right.
customers, not to the rest of the
And
customers.
to me,
I
the
get
average-
it, it's just significantly higher, right? You're basically,
Right, but if you include existing NEMs, you will bring the overall cost of all current and future NEMs down. Because existing are helping to pay, as they should, for the 40 megs that we're putting on the system on their behalf.
yeah,
but they're not paying.
existing are gonna get 21. This is your
That's it.
proposal, or
And-
27.
Well,
depending on-
whatever the math is.
Existing NEM, non-NEM, NEM,
NEM.
yeah.
Right, and then what I'm
And
proposing.
that's their cost share, 50/50, cost share of the battery system.
And then every new
Because they're
NEM,
having,
actually
they're
higher than
having an
50%,
impact,
right?
and then the other side of the coin, the rest of the ratepayers were making this investment to improve the reliability of the system.
and the
So
fact
this
that we
is what
also
the
have our own
benefit-
solar.
What we're afraid is that, what we're saying is that if we don't deliver more reliable system, they're just paying for a battery that's, they're helping others, right?
Right, and they're not
That's
paying
all.
for it.
So
And
it's
what
just a cost allocation.
proposal, and
Yeah.
what I.
And then most important is that really future NEM have to be addressed, because I'm more concerned that, again, right off the bat, and it's been mentioned several times, DOE, that's 22 megawatts. Imagine slapping 22 megawatts into our system today, no?
But if they pay 2 cents a kilowatt
Yeah.
for that, for us to put the storage / frequency control on the system that we control, that would be cheaper than 20 schools going and buying their individual one, no money down, however they do it. It's cheaper if we do it for DOE. We consolidate the purchasing and economies of scale power that GPA has, and the reliable, and GPA controls it, right? And we can talk about dispatchability. All of that becomes GPA's control, instead of wondering, how is this school doing it? How is that school doing it? This school's this size, this school's that
But
size.
anyway, not anyway, I'm sorry.
So,
Apologize,
I
but,
mean, just,
yeah, go ahead. please.
so,
But the-
so the concept, to me, the same thing that John is, whether it's 21, 28, let's say 2 cents a kilowatt, right? That fee, instead of passing on Tuesday, every new person from now on goes and gets a battery, we say no. We petition the PUC to say, we want to raise the flat fee of $15 to 2 cents a kilowatt. The third, by $21, $28, whatever, to the existing. Now they're helping to pay for the $40 million that we've invested on their behalf, right? We get some cash flow back, right? And then every new one doesn't have to go buy a battery. He says, okay, I'll pay GPA to provide that battery someday down the road when GPA says, okay, there's enough new load on the system, let's add a 5 megawatt battery, a 10 megawatt battery, and we can control all that. We keep that. They also pay the $21 from day one, $27, 2 cents a kilowatt hour. We accumulate that money like a system development
Well,
charge.
it'll always change, right? Every new one will change.
No, they're gonna pay 2 cents a kilowatt hour, and if they're a bigger system, it's 2 cents a kilowatt.
They're gonna pay it based on this scenario.
No, what was nice.
You may have, or John's
no.
scenario.
What I like about
but
John's-
the prices of batteries are gonna continue to go down, so they're gonna have a
So-
different charge.
Well, well, so here's what happens. So when John prices a battery 5 years from now, he may come out and saying it's not 1.9 cents, it's 1.4 cents.
That's what I'm saying.
Right? Then the number will go down, right? So the petition.
That's based on the assumptions right now.
Right. But if we like this strategy, we would have to petition the PUC to increase for existing NEM customers, the flat rate, well, let's take it in pieces, the flat rate to 1.9 cents a kilowatt hour, for example, which would somewhere be between $21 and $28 a month. We would have to then also petition that all new customers would pay 1.9 cents a kilowatt hour to begin with, right? We would not have to require them to put batteries on after May 1, March 1, right? And another piece we could do is, if you still want to put on a battery of your own, then we establish a time of use rate that says, hey, we need that energy at peak load, when we're running the most expensive generators, burning off the most fuel. So we'll pay you to put your own battery on it. We'll actually pay you something. But we'll dispatch that energy when we want it, and we're gonna want it at night. It's not worth anything to us at noon. It's worth a lot to us at 6 in the evening when we're turning on extra generators, burning on more extra fuel. And John develops a time of use rate for those that choose to put on their own battery. You don't discourage new
You mean
renewables.
pay them for time of use in excess of what they don't consume?
No, it's like if we could dispatch their battery at 6 o'clock, instead of turning on 20 megs of dead-o, it's only 16 megs of dead-o because some renewables are.
But why would they allow us to dispatch their power if they could just consume it themselves and not pay us? Where are they gonna get their power?
But we saved them on the $24,000 worth of batteries. We're helping them pay for that. Right. Or if they buy it.
What I'm saying is that in the scenario where you buy your battery, why would you pay them to dispatch it? Why wouldn't they just charge and use it themselves? I'm asking, are you paying for the excess?
To me, we're saying your $24,000, I'll buy down a little bit if I can use your battery storage and your energy that you create at noon. If we can use it at 6 o'clock at night, that savings is worth
The
it.
same question, are we doing that now? GPA does not have that kind of technology where we're taking the excess power and throwing it into a battery.
Yeah, we just take it at noon and we pay them full rate.
But on the average, the end of the year, if their production is that, then they shouldn't have really
Get a credit.
excess credit. For those that are on right now, is that's what we're saying, that's gonna stop, right?
No more credits.
If PUC approves it. Now,
But can I just ask,
the
John?
time of use rates, right now, there's a huge incentive to, if you can put an,
Oversized?
because remember, it's about 19 cents a kilowatt hours versus 10 a day. But that incentive goes away when the phase 3 comes on, because now we're going to use 11 cents to shave the peak.
Okay.
So therefore, now the differential might be 1 or 2 cents per day time of use. And so that's why I'm kind of waiting time of use right now today is not going to be beneficial to GPA really
Until we get some money for
until we get
I still go back to what you were asking earlier. At what point does GPA become taking the excess storage and throwing it into a battery or whatever technology? There's technology already out there where the excess is being thrown into something.
So this approach says from this point forward, we're everybody's frequency control
Okay,
/
got that
battery.
part.
But you gotta help pay for it.
But so it's like the self-insurance fund that's now on the surcharge, right? We're creating the fund. The question I have for you, John, is given what we know and the technology that's evolving, when do you think we're gonna get there?
Okay,
Meaning
that
GPA,
that could be the next round.
Phase 3 does what for us?
Phase 3 gets us to shave the peak.
Okay.
And that's the model for taking all the energy production in the daytime for the evening, because we cannot continue. Case in point, if you add another 22 megawatts of solar PV with our batteries,
Right.
the load in the daytime is going to go all the way down to almost halfway or zero. we're gonna have to shut down the power plant. It's gonna go through an inefficient mode, costing more fuel as you reduce the load. So the answer to that may be we get a battery that will catch all of this. And then we use that now to shave the load. So therefore, that could be sooner than later, depending on what. So it could be just, and that will help, whatever is in the system then will help offset the total, the battery cost.
Because that drives back to what GDOE is trying to do, right? So, well, now we're helping them get to that point in their.
But the difference will be, when we help you, you gotta pay for it, right? Whereas right now, that doesn't happen to our non-NEM customers. They get the tab no matter who's adding renewables.
I mean, so the question too, for me is, John, notwithstanding the fact that we're gonna build a more efficient power plant, which we know is in 2 years, or 2022, right?
Right, yeah, Antonio.
Okay, and we're still moving towards more solar.
Utility scale solar.
Yeah, now it's utility scale. It's not, I don't, given this
It's
scenario.
slowed to a halt now.
It's all utility scale. I don't care if
I mean, you're getting a little bit, but it's so slow, right? We're gonna be the driver of getting to 50% at the current rate,
Okay.
right?
So
So,
let me ask a question, because we've been to these CPAD things. I mean, it's like, you go to these new, the housing developments and say, you do your solar, you build your own grid in there or whatever. And I thought they were selling it per grid, or per panel.
well, California now just requires every new house has to put in their own system.
There's a bill in the legislature.
Right.
Right, okay.
So, well, just to complete, so right now, what John has suggested is on Tuesday, we pass starting May 1, everybody gotta get a battery. I'm suggesting maybe a different strategy to look at, and then I would want John to beat it up and say yay, nay, adjust to the left, adjust to the right, but I think conceptually, we ended up pretty much in the same place. It's about 2 cents a kilowatt hour, between $21 and $28 a month for the typical residential customer, that if we could get that from them, and my proposal is current and future, right? Then that's a better thing for the non-NEM ratepayers. What I like about John's 1.9 cents is, whether it's a commercial big one or a residential, it's 1.9 cents by your size, and that's what you pay. And then when we need to add capacity in storage, GPA goes and buys another battery. It'll be cheaper in the future. Maybe that 28 goes down, maybe that 21 goes down, that 19 goes down, but we're in control and we become the utility scale provider with benefits to those that want to stay on the system, those that want to leave the system, and those that don't want to buy anything but just buy it from GPA. We provide that. We aren't killing renewables, right? Like some of the testimony, hey, you're hurting it. So I propose this now because John is asking us to vote on a slightly different policy. John would have to petition for these changes, right? That's going to take some time, right? I'm interested in John's feelings and what he thinks about time of use, whether we should, how we would do it, how long it might take. But my proposal is we delay till June 1st. Let John beat this up between his concept and mine. We're pretty much in the same pew. And come back to us and say, do you still want to recommend that it's, hey, deadline, everyone puts in the battery? Or no, all of you, if you all start paying us, we'll become your battery. Those are two very different concepts. Right now, the proposal is from everybody in the future, you pay your own battery, and all of you 2,600 you get in for free. My proposal is no, 2,600, you help contribute now because we're helping you now, and in the future, you all pay 1.9 cents a kilowatt hour, and every X years, John comes in and says, hey, a new battery costs this, maybe it's 1.6 cents a kilowatt hour. That's
Why couldn't it just be integrated into the current resolution where there's an option?
Well, again, in fairness to you, I'm proposing a change in strategy that you're seeing for the first time, John is seeing for the first time, and yet in the work session, he's asking us to vote on Tuesday. And so I just want to throw that out to you. I would vote no on Tuesday because I'd rather look at John developing something like this,
So
right?
we've gone through this several times. So I think several things. First off, John, even if you go for May 1st, tabling this to a February meeting would not hurt your goal. You still have March, April, May you have 60 days to get to your goal, and maybe 90 days if you go to June 1st. That's number one. So I think it would be prudent to table this resolution to review some of this information, because, and this is where now I need to point out some differences. There are batteries that are there just for shifting, and there are batteries there just for frequency modulation. So not all batteries are the same. So the batteries that we have put on, or we are putting on, are basically just for frequency. They will not be able to take power and shift to nighttime. What we're requiring in the phase 3 bid that you're getting ready to award sometime soon.
Is the one for Navy?
The one for the Navy, that's phase 3. What we're requiring of the partner is that he's putting in batteries that will shift the power at night. The batteries are not there to control the frequency, they're there to charge and then discharge at night. So they're two different kinds of batteries. So he needs to consider a lot of different things so that when he thinks, when he thinks about the rate of saying we can be everybody's battery, and maybe there's a version of all the 2,600 current customers pay in something and all future customers, are we talking about simply for a battery for frequency? Because some customers, some NEM customers do have batteries already. And those people who have batteries are basically batteries for frequency. Nobody has a battery. Listen, I've heard the advertisement many times. Full rooftop solar and batteries and you'll never be without power. That's baloney. I know of one person on this island, lives on the Tete Road, has a 500 square foot house, is not connected to GPA, is not connected to the water system at all. She has a rain catchment, she's a single person, but there's a difference. She's on family land, and Dad's house is just a couple 100 feet away with the long extension cord and the backup generators and the poles. So, you know, nobody has that. Nobody, I know this person, I know the family, okay? And I said, that's great. But John has a lot of thinking to do because you have to qualify the type of battery that you're going to be putting on. So in other words, as we go forward, if we add more batteries to address this, it's only batteries to address shifting, not batteries to address, batteries to address frequency. Okay, that's the problem that he's having now.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I follow your logic. We're requiring, when we put in new renewables, that it must have shifting.
No. For our phase 3. For phase 3,
all
yes.
future,
Yes, yes.
right? We want shifting.
Yes, yes.
So, if a new customer puts on their own renewable source, what's the difference whether we put it on or they put it on if we want it for shifting? We would simply say, you have to have a battery that can be a shifter. But if we put in the battery that's the shifter, we just pass the cost on to them.
But they're
in the same
different
way.
costs, Simon. They're different costs.
I understand, but at the end of the day, they're still paying for it, because right now they get it for free.
Okay, so my point
here's my
is
logic.
you
Hold on,
made
Mr.
a lot of arguments.
Wait,
Here's my point.
wait,
You don't need to go any further.
No,
What
because
we-
you're missing one point. You're saying,
Okay.
my point is this, we are already requiring ourselves to add shifting in phase 3.
In phase 3.
So what's the difference whether we add the capacity and we want shifting in stage 3, or Mrs. Cruz adds the capacity? We would say, Mrs. Cruz, we want shifting.
Because we
And
would
that's the
then have
battery you
two
gotta
different
buy.
we would then have two, wait, Simon, you let me talk too. We would then have two types of NEM customers. Those who have only batteries that do frequency and those that do batteries that shift. And they're gonna come in and say, I'm not the same guy.
Right, and the rate would be different for them. If you're only doing shifting.
Just a minute, Simon, let me finish talking. And then we would have to be policing them. We would have to go out and make sure that battery,
We're gonna know up front what battery they wanna put on. You wanna put on shifting, this is what we're gonna pay
And
you.
you
You wanna do frequency, this is what we're gonna charge you.
and
You decide.
And you need to make sure that it stays working. Because they say, fine, I've got a battery.
You don't maintain it.
And you don't maintain it. I'm just trying to tell you, you have a lot of good thoughts. I think John needs some time to digest those thoughts. And all I'm saying is, lots of good thoughts, but there are certain things that he needs to consider, that's all I'm pointing out. So let's see, my suggestion, John, and if you don't think it's worth it, is to table this resolution to February's meeting. That gives you time to review some of these thoughts. And you can then say, the start date is June 1st. You know, you said earlier you could move it a month. So that would give you that month to do some thinking. And you could do more questionings of everybody and, you know, get your thoughts together. That's all.
Except for
And that's
one
all I
difference,
can
Mr. Chair.
What?
If, under this proposal, there's no deadline to, you gotta have a battery. Because we're gonna be the battery.
I get that. I get that all.
Right? So, we'll provide you the battery. All we're saying is when you bring in your new system, all of you new guys, just like when we put in our own new guy, you know, our phase 3, we're requiring that new renewables has to provide for frequency and shifting, right?
Okay.
And so whether it's our renewable bid or the next 2,000 customers that put on their solar, they gotta come
And
up
you're
with.
already starting to tell us what I'm saying, let's
So
leave,
we're applying it- so
let's
we're
leave
applying
that up to
policy-
John. Yeah, but what I'm just saying, you've added all those thoughts in. Let's give John a month to take all your thoughts and digest it and come up with an idea. That's all. So we
But all I'm saying is this, that when John says GPA adds renewables, it has to have storage/frequency in a certain way that promotes shifting. What's the difference if our new customer adds it? The logic works the same
And that's
with
great,
all
so we'll
new-
let him think about it.
Right,
Okay, so you don't need to go any further, that's my point.
So, but I think we're both on the same page, so we're tabling the resolution.
That's my point, I'm
comfortable with
asking a
that?
question. If you're all right with tabling the resolution, that gives us time now.
I like this idea. I think it's
It's got some merit to it. I'm just saying, there are certain things that the
He
manager
needs to
has.
look at.
There's certain
He needs to
technical
look at.
parts.
Let me,
that he needs to
let
look
me
at.
take a look at it and come back Tuesday about whether we table or not.
If
The-
you wanna come
yeah.
back by Tuesday, that's
No, I mean, I can come back Tuesday and say, I need to table it until February. But secondly, the concern I have, and I'm on
No, that's okay, that's okay.
I could, I sound differently.
That's all right.
you're everywhere.
The concern I have is really that this doesn't linger on, right?
Yes.
And
I'm
so,
with you, I'm with
so
you.
we said, really, it's a technical decision of
Yeah.
the system that could be set whether it's May or June.
Yeah,
Now, if we're gonna go through a hybrid, which I like myself, right, which is kind of what I was showing, then, well, that has to go to the PUC for
The
a
rates.
rate,
Yeah.
right? And so therefore, the one thing I would hope we don't do is let that date slide with the rate.
yeah.
Yeah.
So in other words,
And that's our leverage with the PUC.
no.
Help us by
because
this
my
date,
concern
or
is
this
that
is the policy.
a lot of things come in the door, big numbers, and then we decrease.
John,
So
that's why we're
I
gonna
agree.
give you time.
That's why we're giving
Okay.
it to you. Yes.
All right, so I'll bring it back on Tuesday and
Tell us
say
what you think.
table it or give you anything else. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, colleagues.
Okay.
Let's go home. Move to go home.
You can look at the reports and everything, we'll take it up, and if you have anything on Tuesday.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah. Beat it up, John. Beat it up. Maybe there's a method to the madness. I was so surprised at how close we came. And in fact, if I had the same debt service